Thanks, Eloise. So, hello everyone. My name is Nathan Reilly and I'm Director of Customer Relationships at 27 Tech. Today, I'm going to give you a quick market update based on trends and behavior and data that we're seeing through our platform. That is often a really good indicator for application and completion data as well. Hopefully, this information will be valuable for the panel debate that is going to follow. And obviously aid some of the conversations that you will be looking to have with your customers as well. So before actually going into some key trends on a more granular level that I've pulled together, I actually wanted to go back to the kind of main topic for this, which is how can advisors ultimately succeed and support their customers? I suppose what I really wanted to say was actually you already are, and this data really emphasizes that point. So although there have potentially been negative headlines at times, and obviously that there are some challenges on an economic and global level, if you look at it here, actually 2022 levels, which is the green line, based on searches through our platform, are actually 15% up on last year, which is obviously the blue line. This shows how much customers are already relying on advisors and the intermediary market, and ultimately shows the fantastic support that intermediaries are providing to their customers. This also shows no signs of slowing down based on some forecasts that we've run. So even though things can seem a little bit negative at times, I suppose what I really wanted to emphasize is that on the whole, from a market level, actually there's some really positive signs in there. Next, I wanted to touch on products. So as a sourcing system, products is largely at the heart of what we do. And I know the product landscape and product volatility has been a topical point for the industry of late. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you really is the fact that based on our data, on an individual product level, the challenges we're facing now, whether you're a sourcing system, an advisor, or a lender, are challenges that we've kind of faced before. So again, looking at the blue line, if we go back to 2021, there were actually more individual product number changes being made back then than what we're seeing today, which is the green line. The challenge that we're facing is that late last year, or from Q2, we actually saw a period of relative calm, which obviously fed through to this year. But you can also see here how from April onwards, and April is a key month throughout the next couple of slides, how things have really started to ramp up from a product number change perspective. So although some of the behavior and trends we're seeing are relatively familiar, I suppose the key thing that this graph emphasizes and highlights is how this is now playing out on a completely different scale to what we've seen previously. This graph is showing the number of individual updates. So not on a product level, but the individual updates that we're receiving as a business. So these are the notifications and the emails that are hitting your inbox and ours from lenders. Again, going back to last year, you can see that although we were seeing a decent number of product changes, actually the level of communication for those changes was relatively stable, and that fed through into this year. What you can see again from April this year, which is when inflation really started to take off, which is when cost of living and that whole crisis started to play out slightly more, and when we started to see base rate and the wider economic landscape impact the market, we've now seen the number of product changes materially increase since then. To put some numbers to that, you can see that overall the number of changes, so the communications or notifications you're receiving and we're receiving, are currently 44% up on last year, and actually 93% up over the last 4 months. So if you're feeling like actually you're constantly receiving lender withdrawals or lender changes, this data absolutely validates that. Moving on from the updates to the product numbers themselves, this is actually a really interesting illustration. Going back to pre-pandemic levels, so that the start of 2020, we were close to being up here, so 19 to 20,000 individual products within the system. Once the pandemic took hold and that obviously started to impact the market, individual product numbers within our system actually dropped to under 10,000, which was obviously a worrying sign and showed the difficulties that the market and everyone in the market was facing during that period. Positively, as you can see here, if we look at September 2021, we can see that actually product numbers returned to quite a healthy figure, and actually that trend continued going to April, May this year, where by that time we were actually close to pre-pandemic levels. Again, since April again being that key month, we've seen quite a dramatic drop in the number of products that are available via our system. And as of the end of August, you can see that actually product availability had dropped to just over 13,500. This graph here shows how that drop in products is actually playing out across the individual LTV bandings. You can see no LTV banding has been immune from this drop. You can see drops across all of them. But another positive sign is that actually there are products across each of them, which is obviously very different to where we were during the pandemic, where high LTV largely disappeared. So to emphasize, actually, although we are feeling the impact of the product volatility, the encouraging thing is there are still products, which means we can still look after our customers. And this final quote kind of alludes to that in some respects. So the current economic climate, the current challenges lenders are facing, it is impacting everyone, including sourcing systems. But the real positive thing that I would highlight is that actually, as intermediaries in this market, we still have a comprehensive lender panel and a lot of product availability there to serve our customers and to look after everyone that is looking to either remortgage or purchase. So moving on from products now, I wanted to touch on the remortgage market and the longer term products that we're now seeing in the market. So this graph here shows how remortgage has really taken off over the course of really the last 12 months. Going back to January 2021, which is the blue bar here, you can see that remortgage searches were accounting for about 35% of the searches via our platform. This is excluding product transfers, by the way. You can see that this actually dipped during the summer months, which in some respects isn't unusual because we tend to see a pickup in purchase activity during this time. And obviously we had the stamp duty period during this period as well. But then you can see as we got through the summer, definitely into kind of late summer and into autumn, you can see how remo activity really started to pick up to the extent where it was then nearly 40% of the searches that were taking place through our system or our platform. This trend has continued throughout the whole of this year, where you can see month-on-month increases in the percentage of remortgage searches to an extent where remortgage is actually now over 45% of the searches taking place through our system, which is obviously 10% up on January last year. In some respects, not surprising, particularly in an increasing rate environment, but also reassuring to see that there's a really strong remo market there and that customers are proactively speaking to our advisors to try and get ahead of the game with the economic headwinds and ultimately looking to sort out their finances. This graph again is looking at the remortgage market, but more from an opportunity perspective. So this graph goes back to October 2020, and this is looking at the number of 2-year fixed searches that actually took place during that time. I should highlight that obviously a search doesn't translate perfectly through to an application or a completion, but based on the typical conversion rate, we would expect, based on these levels, there to be a significant number in the tens of thousands of remo opportunities and cessations coming up over the next 12 months, which again provides a really, really good opportunity for advisors. On the remo side, something that I then wanted to finish on was something that we've been seeing out, which I think you probably could relate to the cost of living crisis. So positively, year on year, we've seen a 44% increase in the number of debt con searches taking place via our system, which, as I said, I think on the whole is a really positive and encouraging sign, because it shows that customers and advisors are being proactive and looking at solutions to ultimately maybe improve their financial situation. The slight concerning point that maybe isn't a factor, but maybe is, that correlates with this, is the fact that we've actually seen a drop in adverse searches during this time. There may be an argument to say the two go hand in hand, and if you're seeing actually some really prudent financial management, then you'd expect to see adverse go down. But there may also be this slightly worrying trend that there could be a storm around the corner where some customers maybe aren't being as proactive as they could be, which obviously does present an opportunity for advisors to go and proactively speak to their customers to ensure they are thinking about potential solutions that could solve some challenges for them down the line. Finally, for this section, I then wanted to just touch on how we've seen the product term, I guess, landscape change as well over the last 2 years. So I'm looking here at the shift in that 2-year, that 5-year, and that 10-year market. So if I go back to September 2021 here, you can see that actually during that time, 2-year and 5-year document levels, so this is ESIS levels, were broadly in line with each other. You can then see over a period of time how that increase in longer term, so 5-year, has really started to take off. Again, no doubt fed by customers witnessing this rate increase environment, preempting cost of living challenges, looking at inflation, and looking to ultimately give themselves that greater level of certainty that a 5-year may offer them. What's also interesting within this graph is you can see that if I go back to September 21, there's next to no documents against 10-year products. And I'm not saying that 10-year has taken off, but you can see that there is this slight emergence now of 10-year as well, which again just confirms that point I made a moment ago. Increasing rate environment, customers looking for more certainty and looking to lock in, and advisors ultimately serving that need as well. The reason I wanted to highlight this is this potentially presents a contact gap for advisors. If we're shifting from a 2-year market to a 5-year or a 10-year, obviously the period of time where an advisor will be engaging with their customer has significantly increased. In order to potentially solve that challenge, I would be saying to advisors, if protection is a big part of your business, I'd certainly be looking at that in 2 respects. One, it gives you a fantastic contact touch point as well, that can bridge this contact gap that is potentially being played out from a mortgage perspective. Secondly, it's also a really, really good safety net for customers if they're potentially going to face some adversity compounded by the cost of living crisis over the next 12 months. The final point I would also say to advisors on this is there is technology that helps you with contact. Obviously, tech is what we do, and we work with providers that are very, very good in this space in terms of providing solutions that ultimately bridge that contact gap for advisors. So advisors don't have to necessarily have that awareness. They can ultimately rely on the efficiencies that technology provides them to frequently and regularly engage with their customers. Okay, so the 3 final areas I then wanted to touch on are self-employed, green, and tech. I wanted to touch on self-employed because I know that's very close to the hearts and minds of Kensington. And again, this is a real positive, and I wanted there to be a lot of positivity throughout this presentation. You can see here how self-employed continue to rely on the intermediary market to help them with the complexity that self-employed sometimes offers. You can see here that there's been a 31% increase in self-employed searches this year, which again, I think is a real positive, but it also shows maybe economically how self-employed people, those that own businesses, are also taking a more proactive approach to potentially manage their finances across both their personal side and their business side. It also potentially highlights the fact that the cost of living crisis and the increase in goods is maybe impacting businesses at this stage, which is why we're seeing this this greater increase in self-employed searches against generalized searches. For the market, this will continue to be a real key driver, I would say, over the next 12 months. I promised Eloise and the team that I wouldn't go into green that much because, in all honesty, there are people far better equipped to discuss green across the market than I am. But what I wanted to touch on as part of this is to really show that the number of green searches are starting to increase across our platform. There's still a long way to go when you look at the number of green searches compared to overall searches, but I think this highlights how advisors and customers are starting to have that greater level of green awareness and starting to engage more on that front. I wanted to include it in here because green is going to be key for the market, and it is going to be key for intermediaries moving forward. Obviously, there are governmental targets, global targets that people are committing to, and as a industry, we need to be feeding that and making improvements in order to make the world greener as well. I would also say that if you don't feel overly comfortable talking about green or proactively speaking to your customers on this front, there are loads of parties across the industry, including one that Richard is actually proactively kind of leading on, that are looking to support advisors with the green agenda and helping them with education in order to proactively engage with their customers on that front. So if you're looking to upskill because you think this is going to be a big area moving forward, which it will be, please seek support because there's plenty available. I then wanted to finish with tech. Working for a tech provider, I couldn't ignore it, but I obviously didn't want it to be the key part of their presentation either. Really, the final point that I wanted to make on tech is the market is challenging at the moment. Affordability isn't easy to navigate. Lots of product changes, lots of criteria changes, obviously service levels changing all over the place as well. The thing that I wanted to emphasize is that there is technology available to solve all of those problems for you, to give you back more time in order to engage with your customers. And I would say across all the major tech providers, we are always open to discussing those solutions with you to try and actually deliver more efficiency for your business and to help you over the coming months as well. That's everything from me. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation and hopefully that's given you a few points to reflect on. And on that note, I'll pass back to Eloise.